Once again, a very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. For the ones joining in late, today's topic is on Law Society audits, and it's a CPD session. It's a 1-hour CPD session, and it's accredited for professionalism CPD credits. Once again, repeating that uLaw never provides, so far at least, we don't provide substantial CPD credits. So for the ones attending regularly, you might be aware of it. And for the new attendees, welcoming you all into the CPD session. I hope you enjoy it. The topic for today's session, as already mentioned, is Law Society audits and getting ready for the Law Society audits. Topic is, exact topic name is entered here in the chat window. I'll repeat here once again. It's get ready for Law Society audits. You can get on your respective Law Society portals to claim 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits by providing the topic title. The attendance link is also provided here. Stephanie from my team will be sharing it every 15 minutes once. She'll be next sharing it at 2:15, 2:30, 2:45, and 3 p.m. All right, so quite a few of you have joined in, so I think we're ready to get started. As you all know, we're almost into the second quarter, halfway through second quarter, if I should say that. Done, May is done, June is here, so we'll be done with this quarter by end of this month. So I'm sure you're all keeping track of your records, your books, and your practice procedures and other general books that you need to keep record of. So today's topic, we're going to see what are certain necessary processes and necessary documents that you will have to keep intact and up to date for Law Society audits. And to begin with today's agenda on what is the audit process, how to prepare for an audit. Basically, there are different types of audit. We're also going to see how these affect in the due course and what are these different types of audits. Like there's practice review audit, there's financial review audit, there's technology. These could be all spot audits, or there could be other different types of audits, as already mentioned. So we're going to see all these rules and regulations, as well as what is required to do if you're being audited majorly. We're not going to see too much complicated things here. We're going to see very simple, straightforward, yet compliant with Law Society. Last but not the least, benefits of using practice management and legal accounting solutions for audit proofing yourself. We're not still in the age-old era where we write documents or we record transactions and make journal entries. And I think we're all over it. In fact, everyone's using computerized methods to, do your accounting, bookkeeping, trust and general reconciliations. There's so much that gets into it to keep yourself compliant with Law Society when you're running a practice. Now, this agenda today is going to cover all of these that we discuss now as part of Law Society audits. And before I get started with, what is the process and how, what are the necessary documents that you need to keep in mind to keep gathering them over due course, let's say on a monthly basis, yearly basis, quarterly basis. How? Now, what is this audit all about? I mean, the word definitely panics or brings a panicking, alarming thing in us. But what is it truly? What am I supposed to do? And a lot of you have this question as to, hey, you know what, I'm being audited. It's a spot audit. I'm not sure if I have everything. I mean, like, you don't have to literally panic. Now, there are a few times where there could be chances you'll be audited. let's say you're a new entrepreneur, within first 18 months, you're likely to be audited. Or if you're someone who's, who submitted your annual report, and let's say there's something alarming in that annual report, there's a trigger point. It could be, let's say there's a bank error in your trust, and while you're submitting it, if it's still outstanding or something, it'll trigger. There are some trigger points that it could capture the attention of law society and, enable them to send you the report or ask you for further reports rather. Now, this is where it all begins, right? It could definitely be a spot audit also. Like I said, there are different types of audits. So it could either be somebody who's a new entrepreneur, could be likely to be audited in the first 18 months, or someone who submitted an annual report with a triggering point in it, or someone, is being spot audited like every 3 years once, 4 years once. Totally depends. They have their own techniques and methods to pick and choose a practice for review. So it's totally sometimes spontaneous. It's sometimes it goes by the the methodology of either of the options that we discussed now. So whatever it could be. Now, what is it that you need to do when you're being issued an audit notice? First thing first, don't panic. That's something that I always tell my clients. Don't panic. It's not an end. There's always solution to problems, and being audited is not a problem at all. Audit is definitely going to promote the health of your firm. It's going to support the quality of the work you've been doing. Like, there's maximum going to be some records that you'll have to submit and support all your transactions over a due course of time. So in this case, as we already discussed, why you and the purpose. Now, what is it that you're necessarily you're having to do here? It's definitely something that you have to keep your records, which is, trust account, general account, if you have a business credit card. So make sure all your accounts are up to date. When I mean up to date, on a regular basis, in fact, on a daily basis doesn't even matter, because some offices are small, some are medium, some are large. Totally depends on the scale and the volume of your business. But I would honestly recommend somebody to go on a day-to-day basis to review your practice procedure. What are the methodologies that you've adopted? Do you have a practice management? Do you religiously record all transactions? When I mean all transactions, when a client pays you retainer, when a client pays you client payment into general account, there are two differences. One goes into trust, one goes into general. So depositing the money into the respective accounts and reconciling them in your books is really important. That is the basic step that you want to take. Now, if you record the clients, if you record the details or information of your clients as to what matter, what is happening in there, are you probably collecting retainer, or are you billing this client for the work already completed and getting the money into the general account? There are different types of practice procedure one can adopt. Now, first be clear on the practice procedure that you're planning on adopting and stick to it. Try to at least stick to it. There's always, small things that you can keep changing. Like, for example, you can also charge someone flat rate fee. You can charge someone billable time. You can keep switching, the types of billing, or there are different, procedures that you could. But end of the day, try to stick to them in a long run so that you're able to capture the data and follow a certain procedure on a regular basis, maybe daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. in general, we are forced to do a monthly basis because Law Society wants to see your monthly reconciliation reports, right? So end of the day, it all boils down to monthly, definitely. But if you want to make it simpler, if you want to make the monthly reporting simpler, you should be someone who does the accounting or the practice management on a regular basis. I'm not saying try to do it then and there. I mean, it is definitely recommended to do it then and there on a spot. So you don't go back scratching your head for what was the payment for, which client did me pay me that money for, what was this expense for, is it an office expense, is it a disbursement? There's so many questions that are raised within yourself while you're staring at the bank statement end of the month. So this is why I and my bookkeepers always recommend that, okay, first thing first, get your transactions into whatever method of accounting you follow, or tools that you follow, whether you're using an Excel spreadsheet, simple Excel spreadsheet, or whether you're using a practice management software, whatever it is. Try to get the information abruptly into the, software or the program that you're using. From there, you start. You have a nice weekly checklist. I would even add a daily checklist, but I don't want to sound too much here. So at least to be realistic, add a weekly checklist, add a monthly, quarterly, yearly. Now, let me be honest. Like I said, you're going to be anyways forced to do your monthly checklist, which is where preparation of your trust ledgers, general ledgers, reconciliation statements, journals, everything falls into place. Now, on a weekly basis, what are you required to do? The bare minimum you could do is review your bank statement. Now, you could ask me, how am I supposed to have my bank statement every week? Because they get generated only on a monthly basis, right? You can print it out. Yeah, you have online banking today. You can log into your online bank. You can simply scroll through the transactions for this last 1 week, either print it or just take a screenshot and complete the transactions into your books, which is highly recommended, okay? As part of your weekly bank account validation checklist, I think this is top priority. It's always good to have a, top-down approach for certain things, but for this particular thing, I would say, bottom-top approach is always the best thing to do. So start from the bottom, start from the scratch, get your validation for bank statements done on a weekly basis. Then moving on, that would make you 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. So end of the month, all that you have to do is take a look at the closing balances, take a look at the outstanding checks, take a look at the outstanding deposits, and then if you have any bank errors, take necessary action over there. And end of the day, reconciliation is barely like a 15-minute task. I mean, if everything is intact, depending upon the volume, plus or minus 30 minutes, okay? So that is your monthly financial checklist supposed to look like. And on a quarterly basis, of course, if there is any ongoing file with your client, you have to give some client communications. You have to send them some settlement statements, some summaries, accounting-related documents, your time management, professional commitments. Like, for example, today you're all sitting and attending the CPD because obviously you have some professional commitments here to complete your certain CPD hours and also learn the program, which is gain knowledge and etc. And matter management procedures over here, because you might have to obviously keep your matters up to date. If there's anything closed, you mark them closed. If there's anything ongoing, you leave them active, so on and so forth. So there are, other than this, you also have financial-based quarterly review checklist over here, which is where, your HST, GST, PSA, other things comes into place. So your quarterly taxes, that is also to be checked and remitted accordingly. And when it comes to yearly, you have your own checklist for your year-end review, and you want to take care of your law society needs to submit your annual report, get information from the program or the software or the Excel spreadsheet that you're using, like what bank errors are there or not, what is the closing balance, is it matching, what are the outstanding. There's so many other details that we all need to submit to annual report. So you need to be prepared for all of those when it comes to year end. So those are what you need to be aware of when it comes to your tasks, which are, monthly, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. Now, when you go into what are the different types of audit and when do you think these could happen? For example, the practice review is something where the auditors would like to know if you as a practice or a firm is properly managing your clients. Are you doing your conflict checks? Are you doing your client ID verifications? Are you giving them retainer agreements? Are you giving them receipts on time? Are you raising invoices on time? Are you sticking to your retainer agreement? There's so many things that form part of it, and this is what, end of the day, in a practice review, an auditor would like to see. They're basically reviewing your practice, and which is right from the time you intake a client and you onboard them and you service them, and it's all related or is in relation to the practice, and that's why it's called practice review. And when you go into financial review, it's much more a drill down of data, where obviously the auditors would like to see your trust in the general accounts, and whether it's as per the bank statements. Even a transaction, a date that is not matching, there's a difference in amount. And there's so many things that so many times you could be, asked a question for. Like, for example, like I said, the date could be different, the amount could be different, or you have not even recorded it. You see a bank error and you did not choose to enter it as a bank error, you added it as a disbursement. There's so many things that forms part of financial review. So financial review is a little bit more, I won't say complicated, but it involves numbers, guys. At least practice review doesn't. It is more of, I think it's more of client matter management, but financial review is more of financial related and accounting related data involved in it. While you get into technology, obviously, it is more of whether you're using proper safety standards with the software that you're using or a technology that you're using, and what are the guidelines, and is it something that matches with law society requirements, and everything is to be covered as part of the technology review when you're being audited as under that specific subtopic. And lastly, professional and time management review. This is something which is, in regards to the professional rules and conduct guidelines here. In fact, time management in your area of practice and whether it's being maintained, whether the firm is taking necessary steps to keep yourself compliant as a professional and a time management. So you will have to be working towards it, like obviously today's CPD and other things you're involved in. So those are the types of audit. And when it comes to practice management, as when you are all using a practice management, I'm sure many of you attending today's session are probably uLaw users or are using something else, or you're keen to try uLaw, whatever could be the reason. Let's understand a little bit about what a practice management could do and what should you review when it comes to a client management under, under a specific practice management. When it comes to, of course, it all starts, like I said, with a client intake, client service and communication. Docketing every single conversation or event that occurs, detailed notes is where everything starts. I think you definitely need to have all your notes handy. You never know when it comes handy, but that's where it all begins. And handling of course, your retainer agreement, depositing it into trust account. And if you're receiving it as cash, are you depositing it in within 24 hours? Are you following all the trust guidelines if you're not receiving more than 7,500 as cash? Especially, if it's paid as cash, you have several points that you have to keep in mind. And you're providing them with a receipt, handling joint retainers, even more specific, whether you're adding both the parties involved in here, and whether you're issuing invoices in both their names, receipts in both their names. There's quite a lot that goes behind it. And if there's any fee complaints, any flat rate, billable time, anything that is being changed from what you have said on the retainer agreement, you're definitely going to be held responsible for that. Providing clients with regular monthly, quarterly, and yearly updates, orally and also in writing. So other than that, they're bound to, especially you might ask, why quarterly, why yearly updates? There could be some cases that could go on for a while, right? Especially, of course, if they're smaller ones, you don't have to worry. Maybe maximum you provide them monthly reports as per the guidelines. But if you're someone, the case is going for matter is going for more than several months, then you provide them appropriate reports. Also, disposition letters, letter of conclusion, closing letters, all of these forms part of client service and communication when it comes to practice management checklist. Now, if you go into uLaw, if you go into matter, there's a compliance tab. For every matter, there's a compliance tab. And for each client, each matter, that compliance tab will carry all of these documents. Trust me, right from the time where you have a client intake form to the time of closure letter, you have everything. In fact, even the non-engagement letters, where there are some ghost clients, you need to provide them with non-engagement letter. Many of them are not aware of it. Like, ghost clients are someone who are technically prospective clients, but they reach out to you then, for info, then for some reason they're not getting back to you, they're not interested. So it turns out to be that's why they're termed as ghost clients. So it turns out to be that you need to provide them with a non-engagement letter, which many of us are not aware. So I highly recommend you to follow these as part of, the practice management checklist for client service and communication. Now, moving a little further on, where you have matter management and internal procedures, obviously you have completed the client intake, and now moving on to matter management, where, you have provided the file name. Of course, you need to provide a good file name. Now, a lot of them have this habit of terming the file name with an area of practice. Like, they would say small claims. They would say wills and estate. That's not definitely the file name. That's your practice name. That's the area of practice. So I always recommend giving, let's say, something to do with John versus Michael, or it's something to do with tenant payment and rent unpaid, whatever, arrears rent, whatever could be the issue, that needs to be nicely converted into file naming conventions. Do you have separate matter file names for same client? So that is where, again, it rings a bell. A lot of them have this habit of creating two clients for same client twice for two different matters. Now, when it is for a different matter, it is recommended that you maintain same client. Obviously, you don't want to confuse yourself with one client's name being recorded twice and having matters separate. That's not how it works. You have only one time entered, but two new matters, two separate matters rather for them. And that way you will know when you look at that client, what is the overall balance, what is the balance in each matter, what is happening in each matter when you go into that specific client's name. Organization of file numbering system, everything forms part of it. Docketing, you have a good docketing procedure. Are you using Scratchpad system? Are you using billable time? And then do you have a proper retainer letter with all nature, scope, fee, structure, and about disbursements, reimbursement of disbursements, penalties. What if the agreement is being terminated, all termination clauses, everything being included in there. And also if you're maintaining the status of the file, as I mentioned a little earlier in this chat over here, where you have to make sure that your file is being file status or the matter status is being updated from time to time, whether it's an active file, inactive file, closed, archived. So it has to be updated from time to time, so you know when it was last acted upon, when it was created. And like we all have a good opening procedure. Sometimes it tends to be that we don't have a closing procedure. So it is also important, if you're looking at uLaw matter, you will have closing procedures for your matters or files. So you could use that. I'm definitely going to showcase all of you uLaw in the last 10 minutes and show you how it looks. Now, do you also have this habit of sending all these following documents to your clients upon closure? If you haven't so far, I would highly recommend doing it, because it gives your client a sense of clarity of what happened in the matter all these days. They have a statement of activity. Statement of settlement will provide the details of what they were being charged, how much did they pay, how much was paid into trust, how much was paid into general, bill of cost, then a proper closing letter. I mean, there are two advantages to this particular point. One is definitely that your client is aware of everything that has happened in there. And two is that because they're aware, they're more comfortable, they're very happy, there are chances that they could come back to you for another file, repetitive client, or they could refer you to another client for this particular, client servicing, communication, and matter management, which will obviously give you more clients. So these are small techniques that will enhance your practice. In turn, will help you for a good practice management. Slowly from there, when you move on to financial management, which is again involving data, this is where a lot of, numbers play a role. So you're having your fee structure, your retainer letters, you're capturing everything in the retainer letter, because that is your first set of communication with your client. Then you know whether you're doing a block fee or you're doing a billable time. Then you record all the dockets, raise an invoice, collect the payment, or if you've already collected payment as retainer, move the money now from trust to the general, issue them a receipt. And you're basically capturing simultaneously all of these details into your books of accounts as well. So whether it is going into your bank or going out of your bank, whether it was a disbursement or retainer, all of these are captured along with the appropriate cost and taxes so that you can report it to Law Society in the form of these journals as disbursement journals, payment journals, receipt journals, and also your reconciliation reports, etc. Okay. I'll quickly pause here for a moment to see if there are any questions. I would certainly take all the questions at the end, but if you're all having any questions, I request all of you to add the questions in the chat window. And Stephanie is sharing all the links and details for today's topic. It is Get Ready for Law Society Audits. I request each and every one of you to use the attendance link and also use the topic to get your 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. All right, so as part of the next few slides, we're going to be seeing more of obviously the financial management over here. I know that financial management can be a little tricky if you're not someone who's had enough experience on it, but trust me, these are only going to help you to be more vigilant and in turn help you to be having a great practice. So what is this financial management checklist? As I already mentioned, you have a fee structure and retainer over here, and going on to understanding what forms part of the next step was obviously once you have the retainer in place, once you have the fee structure in place, then you are obviously going to raise invoices. So raising invoices, collecting payments are the next step. Now, to raise invoice, obviously you have to stick to your retainer letter, whether you're doing a billable time, flat rate, are you raising invoices on time, are you eligible to charge taxes or not? If you're capturing taxes, are you doing it properly before taxes, after taxes? And if client has concerns, what is your internal procedure to address it? Are you giving them discounts? Are you, recording any conversations? You have to make sure, obviously, you have proofs for everything, for every single conversation and correspondence that you have with your client. And slowly then you start adding your dockets, then you raise an invoice. When you raise an invoice, obviously there's an invoice balance for a particular matter or any single client, which you get to, either transfer from trust to general if there's money lying in the trust account, or directly get it into your general account. Also getting paid from trust, getting paid into general. Two important things. Now, getting paid from trust is that you have any disbursements that you're paying out of trust, and whether you're overdrawing from trust. There are two things that you have to be very careful with. Now, if you're paying for any disbursements from your trust, obviously it's your trust money, your client's money sitting in your trust account, which you're utilizing, and the balance goes towards your invoice for your legal fee, or you refund back to the client. Now, you just have to make sure that you don't overdraw it. For example, I'll give you a classic example here. Now, you have money sitting in trust account, which is a retainer for $500, and you have a $100 disbursement out of your trust account. Now, you're raising an invoice for $400, then it's good, right? Where $100 is gone as a disbursement, you're raising as a trust payout, and then you have a $400 as a legal fee, and you're good. But sometimes people have this habit of $400 is the legal fee, they've entered that. $100 they've added as a disbursement as if it's paid from the general account. And then they're also withdrawing $100 from trust as a trust payout, thinking they'll pay themselves. Now, when you raise an invoice, what happens is that it becomes 400 plus 100 plus another 100. So, which means your trust is overdrawn by $100, right? So this is where you need to be extra careful and always refer to your trust and general tabs. If you're all using uLaw users, I'm sure you're aware of it. Every matter has a trust and a general tab. When you go into the trust tab, you can clearly see what is remaining in your trust and you can take action appropriately. Now, if you don't know what you're having in trust, it becomes hard for you to make an invoice. You have to be extra careful with not to overdraw from the trust because it's a violation. It's a law society violation. So please make sure, you do that. And getting paid into general is that obviously you're ensuring that you're receiving amounts into general, which is not more than your invoiced amount. It can be equal, it can be less than your invoiced amount. It cannot be more than your invoiced amount because into general, you can only receive money that you have invoiced, which is the outstanding balance. If you're paying disbursements from general, make sure you're tracking it properly and you're either receiving that money from client into your general account after you've invoiced them, or you're transferring it as part of your trust retainer from trust to the general. So these are certain points that you can keep in mind, especially while you're handling finances, right from the time you record dockets to raising invoices to transferring funds from trust to general, having any invoice balance, and getting paid into trust and general. So what are the points that I would say you should definitely make a note here is avoid overdrawing or over withdrawing from trust and avoid getting paid excess amount into general account, which is also a violation. So these are the 2 points that I would say is a major takeaway here. Going on into reviewing your trust accounts, how good are you doing your, not just trust, but your overall, your trust general, your books. Are you reviewing the technology? What are you using from time to time? For example, it's whether you're using a computerized data, whether you're using a practice management solution or a document management solution, whether it's a legal accounting or a simple accounting software, and whether you have antivirus software, then you have a network security, etc. Making sure that you have backup of your data every now and then. And of course, if you're using a cloud-based software like uLaw, we take care of it for you. But at your end, if you're using any desktop-based applications, please make sure that you're doing your own backups from time to time. And when it comes to clients using these technology, you should just please make sure that right from the time you start, you need to bring it to your clients' awareness about certain electronic medium of communications, certain risks involved in it. So it's obviously important to indicate your client with all of those technology-related communications, exchanging communication, exchanging data, exchanging documents, all of those involved in it, right? And, as part of a practice management review, how can we, as a practice management solution and a legal accounting software, of course, help you to get better here? I mean, there's no doubt that practice management does most of the work. The software does most of the work for you. I mean, definitely a human intervention is needed here to tell us the details. We provide you the reports, right? Finally, it's all about the ease of use. It saves time. You're able to record events as and when they happen. Like, you don't have to try to remember it until you get back home or you get back to your home office or wherever you are after a client meeting to your office to sit and type down everything on an Excel spreadsheet and do your journals and bank records, etc. No, that's not how it works today. Everything with a practice management is at finger click, and you're able to record all of these transactions, make it simple for everyone, maintain none of the above documents if you have the software do the work for you literally, because you record the transaction in the matter, and in the accounts you have the reports ready for you. So that's the level of, ease of use you have here. Of course, compliance, because everything is law society compliance, and you can also track down your business on a regular basis, like we mentioned about the checklist. So you have a monthly checklist, weekly checklist, quarterly and yearly. Accountability is very, very easy when it comes to, using a practice management. And besides that, obviously, for analytical purposes, even for your internal purposes, you have high idea on what helps you assess the health of practice. So when it comes to assessing your health of practice, whether you're doing a profit or loss, you're able to tell in no time, right? So all of this forms part of practice management and legal accounting software, benefits of it. I did share a few points with all of you. If you have any questions, and of course, last but not the least, seeking help from experts. Nothing like having bookkeepers, having your own accountants. They save a lot of time for you. I mean, if you're well versed with technology, of course, the practice management does the help. And beyond that, the practice management is only a tool that you use. And expertise knowledge will help you be more compliant and, most importantly, in a timely manner with our society. Okay, so just want to take a little bit of time here to show all of you how everything works in uLaw. And we were talking about being audit ready. So now let me start from contacts level to be audit ready. Now, if you're using uLaw, guys, you have nothing more to do by just simply clicking on document generation. You have tons of documents here, but other than that, there's a compliance tab, which is what you need to keep yourself compliant with law societies. When you're adding a contact, do a conflict check, do a source of contact. We know that you're, added few clients today and you're able to do a source of contact. And when you're probably doing a conflict check, you know that your entire program, this entire program is thoroughly checked, and you can rely on this document, which will provide you the conflict end of the day, right? Likewise, when you go on to creating matter, so that to the matter level, now that's the that's the conflict check. You have all potential conflicts showing up in here. Now, other than this, of course, if you go into matter, now when it comes to the matter level, where your first set of communication is taken care from the document generation, of course, in contacts, you had many other things. Of course, you have the client intake forms, you have client ID verification, other compliances. That's all done from here, client fee book, etc. Now, all of those are done. Then you go into the matter level. Again, there's a compliance tab here. This is what I was referring to as, quarterly documents, annual documents, any monthly or, weekly documents over here. So there's so many over here that also has titles, that you have some client-facing documents. That is a client intake part where you have client ID verification, client intake, conflict screening, retainer letter. All of these are preliminary documents that you hand over to the client. And you also have quarterly statements for statement of activity, bill of cost, settlement plus accounts. Other than that, there's rest of it, which is part of non-engagement letter when you're not engaging with a client, typically a ghost client situation. disposition letter and closing letter. Let's take, for example, a statement of activity. So when you go into a statement of activity, it very clearly gives you all of the details. Of course, it gives you the, the legal fee and other details as to how much you've charged, what time, and other information. Now, if you go into settlement plus accounts, this will give you more information, further drill down of the matter. You get the legal fee details, right? As in like what you've charged them and what are you getting as a retainer, disbursements, everything, and how much you've obviously gotten into trust, withdrawn from trust, or what you've charged as legal fee, summary of general, and what is the balance due, right? So these are important documents that forms part of it. And of course, you have your client's intake form. You can download a client intake form and it can have several details. Some of them are fillable details. Let's say this client provided you with driver's license. You can actually type that in and validate all fields, and it will show you the ones that is not probably validated, or that is showing that it's mandatory and doesn't have information, let's say address and other details. So there's so many things that they're minor basically, but you need to look into it to gather more information to make sure you're law society compliant and ready for a law society audit all the time. Trust me. And let's say you're receiving a retainer. There's a specific retainer that I've entered in here, and I've forgotten to give in the receipt. So I now unlock the transaction and then I can give a receipt. But to unlock a transaction, I need to become an admin. So I go into our accounts, action, admin, enable admin. I go back into the matters. I want to give a receipt. I can also give it this way by clicking on it, unlocking it, and submitting it. Or I can also do it from the receipt right beside the download button option there on the top, which is right here. Receipt, retainer receipt, and download. Both are going to give me the same documents as you all see now. This and this, both are same. And the receipt, issuing a receipt upon collecting a retainer is extremely important. Okay. You also have dockets where you add the dockets under matter events. You will, once you collect the retainer, you enter the legal fee, you enter whether it's flat rate, billable time, you enter the docket, raise the invoice, and upon raising the invoice, you're able to collect the payment, whether it's in the trust account, you move it into general. So this is the invoice, and you have the money of 500 sitting in your trust account. So you go click on the question mark, transfer the money, pending trust transfer, complete the transfer. Over here again, you have another important point to note. Upon completing the transfer, if you're an Ontario licensee, you're required to enter the electronic fund transfer acquisition number upon completing it. Once you transfer it, you can download a Form 9A, which is again automated. So these are some benefits of using practice management software. It saves you so much time. It provides you with all compliant documents that is necessary for you, and mostly audit ready. Most importantly, being audit ready at any time of the day, right? So this is definitely something I highly recommend all of you to do it. So right from the time you intake the client to convert the matter. So this is where you have the matter title, entering the matter title, then you have rates, other things that enter in there. You have retainer entered here, provided the retainer, provide the retainer receipt. Of course, from the compliance, you also provided the retainer letter. Look at the retainer letter. I got a $500 retainer, so I'm entering that in here. Look at the retainer letter, the number of things involved in a retainer letter. You don't even have to worry about doing it all by yourself, because Let me open it for you. I think my PDF is full. Sorry. Okay, so go back in here. This is the retainer letter. Okay. Now, the retainer letter has all of the details, description of the services, fee, expenses, interest, even termination details that we spoke about, communication, and other details, right? So your client needs to be aware of all of this. They need to know what they're getting into when you're signing up this retainer letter. And other than that, when it comes to your matter management level of being ready for an audit, I think if you're covering the compliance tab and the document generation tab, there's most of it that is in here. These get generated only if you're adding in information, right? Like your, probably your pockets, your disbursements, your retainer, and several other things that forms part of a matter. From there, if you go on into accounts, which is financial management part of it, of course, you do have all the transactions that forms part of a matter showing up here, like the retainer, trust transfer, and client payments and other things. But other than that, you can also do your office-related expenses and other income from time to time over here, because your bank statements carry both debits and credits, and all the deposits and income is being entered from the client side, from the matter side. Any expenses that are probably, common, which is office expenses, then you can add it over here manually, or you can choose to import your bank statement by simply connecting the bank and adding in the transaction. If your bank is not connected, you can make sure to connect it with uLaw. You can reach out to our support and we can help you. So if you see here, you can just simply take action for the one that is being asked, and then you can say it was an office expense, was maybe, recreation or miscellaneous, and you can put it as over here, and I would say okay, complete. That's it. It's now completed. And if you now go into your general account or business credit card, you'll see 7850 recreational activity being recorded here. Now, for Law Society, when you're being audited, what they'd like to see is this particular monthly compliance report. I mean, there are quite a lot here, but let's say we are looking at general disbursement. Okay, for example, I think I didn't click on general disbursement, and we'll put as today's date, which is May 28th. Okay, or rather, sorry, last week, which is weekly. So I'm going to go into a specific date range. I'm going to put in, let's say, from end of May to today. I'll show you how this particular recreational activity has been entered in there. 28th May, 78.50. The second line item for all of you here is that I'm going to highlight show. Okay, this is what I just added. Of course, they want to see the method of payment, who it was paid to. That's why I specifically copied Touchstone Climbing from the top and entered it to who it was paid to and put recreational activity as description. It could be a team recreational activity for your office. It could be anything. I mean, a proper explanation is required. That's what they expect from you. Okay. And as part of all of these, you want to also make sure all of these are recorded under the respective accounts. The closing balances are matching. When you go into compliance, when you go into monthly compliance, let's say client's trust for today's date, you've added everything, especially for this client Manish, you have the retainer that's come in, it's recorded, and then what you transferred. Right now, we just transferred this from trusted agent, which is also here. So end of the day, your trust balance is 0 for this client. So these are the supporting documents, the ledgers, the journals, the reconciliation, and intermatter trust transfers, Form 9A. So the Form 9A let me put today's date. I specifically entered Manish Shah's electronic fund transfer reference number. That was the number I entered in front of all of you 5 minutes ago. And I have a Form 9A. So these are small things that can be done super easily. As you're all seeing, with one click button, I'm able to download all of this, is because I have done the input in the right manner. So the basics starts at this level of entering the inputs, giving the inputs rather, and entering the data and making sure you're, in regards to or in respect to your documents that are client communicated or that are client facing, that are already provided to them, and everything matches, they're all aligned. End of the day, downloading these compliance for your law society guidelines as per the law society guidelines is a simple thing. I don't think it takes you more than 5 minutes for this particular task, but what consumes more time is for data entry. But if you're doing all of this manually without a practice management, both data entry and preparing these documents is extremely time consuming. At least under a practice management review, you're technically saving more time by avoiding to build all these documents by yourself. Other than this, of course, there's so much more that you can all do to keep yourself not only compliant, but audit ready from time to time, reconciling from time to time, doing your taxes, monthly, quarterly taxes, your reports on balance sheet, trial balance for your firm's health. You also have calendar and other things here. So all of these forms part of being compliant with law society. Okay. So this is what we had to discuss as part of today's webinar. I'm hoping I was able to communicate most of it. For the ones who have any queries, I'm opening the floor for the next 3 to 4 minutes. I request all of you to participate, enter on the chat window your comments, your queries. There are some links that I would like to post for all of you. I'd be happy if this could be of help to any of you here. I'm not sure if it's in a copyable format that you're in. Maybe try to right click and copy text, but these are some useful links that I think which will certainly help you in order to be audit ready. Beyond this, if you all have any queries, I'll be happy to assist you. For the ones who are not uLaw users, feel free to register for a 30-day free trial. For your friends who you think it will be helpful, it'll be useful, it'll help them to save time, I request you to refer a friend to our platform. Just to keep the recording short, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording. If there are no questions, thank you all for joining in this afternoon. But I honestly welcome questions here. I'll be here hanging out here for another 5 minutes. And thanking each one of you who joined in for today's webinar. The topic for next quarter, for the next few days, we'll be having it updated by end of this week, as in like probably by end of, I think weekend. Yeah, so probably by this weekend we'll have it out, or Monday maybe you will see the webinar portal updated. And I request each one of you to check the webinar portal and also the reminders that you get 15 minutes before the webinar. Thank you so much, each and everyone. Have a lovely weekend. And I'll still be here. I'm only stopping the recording, but I'll be here to take your questions. Happy to take your questions. Take care. Also,